Wizards of the Coast has a super bad habit of breaking a lot of their blue planeswalkers, and they may have done another one in this most recent set, Dominaria, Brothers War, Dominaria United, whatever this next set is. There's a new Teferi. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the stack. Welcome back if you've been here before. I'm NeonMushroom, and today I'm going to sit here for 7 to 10 minutes and talk to you about the color blue and the reasons I like it. You already know the reasons I like it. We're going to talk about Teferi, Temporal Pilgrim, the newest blue planeswalker spoiled in the next set coming out like really shortly here. It feels like we just got a new set, but that's just the way things go here in 2022 and in WotC land, in Hasbro, Wizards of the Coast, Ivory Tower land. So before we even get into why this card is busted, let's just talk about what the card does. I might be using a bit of hyperbole when I say that Teferi Temporal Pilgrim is busted, but it does look quite good, and I am quite excited to play it in basically every format that you guys have seen me play. I want to play this in Commander, I want to play it in Pioneer, I definitely want to play it in Standard, and there's like a non-zero chance this card might be playable as like a one-of in blue-white control decks in Modern. But we have Teferi, Temporal Pilgrim. It's a 5-drop Teferi, we've seen those before. There's one of them that's pretty broken, looking at you, Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. It's a blue-blue in 3, so we got a mono-blue Teferi here. Comes in with 4 loyalty, and here is the Harbinger of Doom, the Harbinger of Endless Sorrows. It's got a static ability. Whenever you draw a card, put a loyalty counter on Teferi Temporal Pilgrim. Now, I don't know if you guys know this about the color blue, but it has an affinity for drawing cards, and this Teferi is going to help you do that. But if you build your deck right, this Teferi is just going to get a bunch of loyalty all on its own, maybe even next to a few of his other buddies who are also Teferi. Don't worry about that too much. He's a time wizard. He's allowed to do that, I think. He has a 0 loyalty ability that just says draw a card. Now it says this is 0 loyalty, but his static ability is going to cause him to gain a loyalty counter when you draw this card. That means when you play it on 4 loyalty and you 0 it, it's going to go up to 5. This is something it has in common with Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, a very, 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 very good blue-white planeswalker that people who remember playing it in Standard, and to this date, even since he's playing Pioneer and Modern, they don't enjoy the experience. I do, but that's because I'm casting the Teferi. The second ability is very interesting because not many Teferis do this, but this one makes the creature. It's a -2. Create a 2/2 blue spirit creature token with vigilance. It doesn't tap to attack. And whenever you draw a card, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. And that it just synergizes with Teferi. So Teferi makes a little buddy, and him and his buddy get way more hype when you draw cards, which puts you ahead, you know, because card advantage, and then your permanents get better. So it's just like the rich get richer. And then it finally has a -12, which seems totally unattainable. But maybe we'll go over some play patterns that make that look a little bit more enticing. -12, target opponent chooses a permanent they control and returns it to its owner's hand. Then they shuffle each non-land permanent they control to its owner's library. So this is like a crazy cracked version of one-sided Cyclonic Rift. Luckily it targets an opponent, which makes this way less powerful in Commander. If it did each opponent, it would probably be quite busted in Commander. But let's go ahead and talk about this Teferi and some of the things it has in common with other Teferis, and some of the things it's doing that old Teferis just did not do at all, and why I think this might be kind of one of the most insane mono blue planeswalkers we've seen printed in a hot minute.
Sick and tired of being a peasant at the bottom of the hill, looking up at all the fine lords and ladies of the land? Well, I got some news for you. This video is proudly sponsored by Established Titles. Established Titles is a fun and novel way to preserve the natural woodlands of Scotland while supporting global reforestation efforts. It's based on a historic Scottish custom where landowners are referred to as lairds, lords, and ladies in English. So when you get a title pack, and you will, which gets you a square foot of land, it shall be bestowed upon you with the title of Lord, Laird, or Lady. They even plant a tree with every order, working with global charities like One Tree Planted and Trees for the Future to keep them forests coming. And in exchange for helping to support this great initiative, you get to officially put the title of Lord or Lady on your credit card and plane tickets, making this an outstanding last-minute gift. The first 200 people that use the link in the description to buy a title pack will be granted plots next to ours. We'd be neighbors! We could stand atop our lordly hill and shun the peasants below. We might not actually be royalty, technically, but we can still throw the false king queen of this land, Trigger, to the vultures. I am the real king of this land! If you can get in on any of the massive sales Established Titles is running, you can use the code MTGStack to get an additional 10% off. Go to establishedtitles.com/MTGStack and claim your land now to help support the show. Become a lord, become a lady, become a laird!
And I think I'd like to start my comparison. I would like to start coming from the perspective of Commander, as we've built this channel off the back of Commander for the most part up to this point. You may be noticing that that's slightly changing, but I believe the heart of this channel will remain Commander-centric for a long time. So let's look at this in the context of Commander compared to some other Teferis. Obviously, one of the most busted Teferis in Commander and one of the most dangerous Teferis in Commander is going to be Teferi Time Raveler, and this is because it shuts down all of your opponent's ability to respond to each other on a basis of instant speed. And that seems really good because it's like a Grand Abolisher effect for you, but it's actually super duper dangerous because if you're playing a particularly high power game of Commander and say your opponent kitty corner to you starts to go off and you are depleted of interaction, but one of your other two opponents has some interaction, that they can't do it because your Teferi's in play and it's locking them out of the game. And then you've got 5 mana Teferi, which is very good in constructed formats. We're talking about Teferi, Hero Dominaria, and this is not so good in Commander because it comes in at 4 loyalty, ticks up to 5, and remains at 5 as you pass the turns around to your opponents. I think this Teferi plays a lot closer to the 4 mana Teferi Master of Time, the one where you can activate one of its loyalty abilities on each opponent's turn, and this is because Teferi Temporal Pilgrim allows you to put a loyalty counter on it whenever you draw a card. This is going to be relevant because in Commander we have a lot of effects that allow us to continue to draw cards throughout the game. Imagine pairing Teferi Temporal Pilgrim with a Rhystic Study and just passing the turn, or pairing it with a Mystic Remora and just passing the turn. Now if your opponents choose to not pay for their spells, not only do you get an extra card, but your Teferi ticks up and up. And luckily, like I said earlier in this video, this Teferi has this ability where you -12 it and it targets an opponent. It's going to be like a one-sided turbo Cyclonic Rift. And I'm looking at you, bad Cyclonic Rift, that Hurkyl's Final Meditation card. I think that card's actually pretty sweet, but I don't think we're going to see a lot of play in Commander because Cyclonic Rift already exists. But yeah, that's just kind of insane in Commander because you're already playing good blue cards in your blue deck in Commander that let you draw cards like crazy. And this Teferi also allows you to ticket up a loyalty whenever you draw a card for turn, which means I'm going to segue this into what I really want to talk about, which is this Teferi in the context of constructed Magic the Gathering, Standard, Pioneer, and Modern. I think this card's going to see most of its play in Pioneer and Standard, but who knows? I think it could see some play in Modern as well. So this Teferi, let's analyze the play pattern of this Teferi really quick. I'm sure you've noticed by this point this is just me gushing about blue cards. Get used to that. That's who I am. That's who NeonMushroom is on the stack. I play Island, I pass the turn, and I make you wonder if I have it. But this Teferi comes in at 4 loyalty, and the first thing you're going to do, probably, unless you're under an incredible amount of pressure, is 0 this Teferi to draw a card. Now mind you, this Teferi is a 5-drop. You know it costs 4 mana? You can curve from Supreme Verdict into this. So you go, I'm going to 3-for-1 you. You have no creatures. And then I'm going to play my Teferi Temporal Pilgrim on the following turn. And then I'm going to draw a card. But if you don't, you can -2 it. But let's say you're not under any pressure and you can 0 your Teferi. That brings your Teferi to 5 loyalty. Then you pass the turn, your opponent does their thing, they pass back to you, and wait, what happens before your main phase? You draw for turn. You draw for turn. Teferi saw that because that counts as drawing a card, imagine that. And then it's going to tick up to 6 loyalty. And then you can 0 the Teferi. And it ticks up to 7 loyalty. Now that play pattern is going to continue to happen where he gets +2 loyalty every single one of your turns if you don't do anything but 0 the Teferi and draw your cards for turn. But we're in a constructed format. We have cards that let you draw other cards at the cost of paying mana. And in Pioneer specifically, I'm looking at very closely because we have cards like Censor, which cycle. It allows you to discard the Censor and draw a card. We have cards like Behold the Multiverse. We've got cards like Sphinx's Revelation, and that card hasn't been playable in Pioneer for quite a long time, but just imagine casting Sphinx's Revelation for like 4, and then taking your Teferi from like 5, 6, and then your turn, so you 0 at 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, that's like 3 turns after you play your Teferi, you can just -12 it if you have a Sphinx's Revelation in your hand, which is kind of insane. And then to boot, this thing still has the -2 ability of make a 2/2 blue spirit creature token with vigilance. These are not legendary somehow. And whenever you draw a card, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. So this Teferi is just going to start to make this army of gigantic vigilant spirits. Thank God they don't have flying. And it's interesting here because you can -2 your Teferi Temporal Pilgrim the turn it comes into play, and you wind up with a 2/2. And then you untap and draw for turn, putting your Teferi at 3, and then you can -2 it again to make another 2/2 blue spirit creature token with vigilance. And whenever you draw a card, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. So the turn after you make the first one, you untap, make a second one, then you can do something like draw 2 cards. And then you're left with a 5/5, because the first one started as a 2/2, then you drew for turn, so it's a 3/3, and a 4/4, because you had to -2 it the second time in your first main phase, so you've already drawn a card for turn. But then say you cast Behold the Multiverse, draw 2 more cards, and you're left with 9 power with vigilance in play. and that seems kind of insane. Now, for any of you that still play Magic the Gathering Arena on Arena, I'm one of those people, and maybe I shouldn't be because the economy is just super bad, and I don't think it's a super healthy program to play Magic on, but it exists, and if you've already bought into it, it's hard to fight the temptation to just hop on and play, and I will be playing Teferi Temporal Pilgrim in Constructed, specifically in Standard. For the last little while now, we've had like a blue-white control shell kind of floating around in the Standard environment, but we've been lacking a over-the-top blue planeswalker. Teferi, Teferi who slows the sunset, ain't it. All it really does is untap your stupid artifact thing, the what's the name of it, the Celestis, the thing that makes day and night and makes mana and all that cool stuff. It's fine, but we needed like an over-the-top Teferi that didn't share a converted mana cost with the Wandering Emperor, because that also creates like mana problems, because you're trying to like Wrath the board on 4, and you're trying to play the Wandering Emperor on 4, and you're trying to play your 4 mana Teferi on 4, and you're trying to Memory Deluge on 4 or Behold the Multiverse on 4, and it just kind of becomes a lot. This Teferi is going to give you a 5-drop, which is pretty sweet. You've got Farewell as a 6-drop, so you've got a follow-up to the Teferi, and that's something I'm very interested in as well. If you guys would be interested in some Standard gameplay, I wouldn't take it too seriously. Standard isn't doing very well right now, obviously, if you haven't noticed, but I still enjoy the format, so if you're interested in seeing some Teferi Temporal Pilgrim in Standard, I would definitely be down to jam that for you. I know that Mr. TTrgr himself also enjoys a blue planeswalker from time to time, and he'd probably do that for you too. But yeah, there's me gushing on Teferi Temporal Pilgrim. You'll notice that I haven't done a whole lot of these sit down and talk to the microphony videos up to this point, and we need to make a point of doing it more often. And there's some longer videos that I want to make for you guys. But if I'm being honest, I'm not as good at them as they used to be before I started this channel, because I had a channel before this. We won't talk about that. But yeah. Buy Teferi Temporal Pilgrim. They're probably not going to ban it. This card doesn't look bannable. It just looks really good. Play it in Commander. Play it in Modern. Play it in Pioneer. Play it in Standard. Play it in Kitchen Table Magic. I don't know. Put it in your Dan format deck. If you know what that is, leave a comment in the comments. And name your favorite Dan player.